And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Susie Sawyer. During Susie's near-death experience, she laid in the arms of God, and today we're going to learn about it. Susie, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
As you may or may not know, my audience loves to hear about near-death experiences. So if you don't mind, can we start on the day yours happened?
Yes, this was in 1997, and I had a pretty significant surgery, abdominal surgery. And as a result of that, and it was at the VA hospital in Los Angeles, and as a result of that, I developed sepsis. And I became very ill, and they had taken my NG tube out, and I started developing a fever, and my heart was beating very fast, I think 160 beats a minute, and I was diagnosed with sepsis. I had a whole crowd around my bed. And I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. And at that point, I was just out of a short and severe marriage, and I was newly divorced. And at some point during that period, because they had told my family that I could very well easily die at any moment, and to start preparing for my potential death. But I did not know this. I was not aware of it. So I was laying in my bed, and it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had been in their ICU was full up, so I was in telemetry. They left me in my bed there at some point, and I began to sense that my room was filled with light. And in that hospital, the rooms, especially the one that I was in, had no natural sunlight coming in the room. It was off of an alcove. So it was kind of dark and dingy in there. And I was the only one in that room. But I began to sense clouds of light in my room, and I felt like there was angels in my room. And I kind of slapped myself on the face, like as to what I was experiencing. All of a sudden, after experiencing this for a little bit, I slipped out of my body. And I didn't look back at myself, but I went into the next room to check on the man that was in the bed next door. Because right after surgery, the next day, they'd gotten me up, and I kind of looked in there as I hobbled along. And I saw that he was elderly and very ill. And I saw him, and I thought, well, he's going to be okay. And as it turned out, he was okay. He died. He passed away. But that was actually a good thing for him. But anyways, at that point, then I found myself on a grassy slope. I didn't go through a tunnel, but I found myself on a grassy slope with a lot of family members and people that knew me. I wasn't sure of who all they were, but it was a huge crowd, and they were waiting for me. And we had a little reunion. But the next thing that I know is I was actually being cradled in the arms of God. And God wasn't as a man or a person, but he was a great being of light, a spirit. Excuse me, I've got dry mouth. And he took on, it was a very large being. He took on the form of a human, but without any features. It was just light and spirit. And I laid in these arms, and he held me. And I was told and shown that, and I felt such immense love coming from him that it was very profound. There's no human words. There's no language to say how that was and what it felt like. But I suddenly realized how loved that I was. And he had a message, and he made it very clear. And he said, there is nothing you have to do. and there's nowhere you can go and to earn or deserve this love, but that you come from me. And wherever you go, you're still a part of me. And you cannot escape this love. You can never get away from it. You're profoundly loved, and you don't have to earn it. And I feel like I'm not doing it justice as to how it actually was. But I realized, because I think that's always been the message that I've gotten, is not having to earn it. And I think, that had been my message as a product of the 50s and 60s, having to, and being female and having, and in religion, that there was a lot of shame that was taught. And I really feel that that's one of the lowest human emotions. But I was shown that how loved that I was. I found myself over a period between 1 PM and 6 PM. I went back and forth between God's arms in my hospital bed. And I'd find myself back in the room again, and the clouds of light were still there in my room, and the angels. And then I would go back to God's arms again. And there was all these angels that surrounded us hanging off in the distance, and they were singing and reciting poetry. Now, I like to write, and I've written poetry since I was a child and won some awards, and the poetry was beautiful. I don't remember any of it, though. I remember that it was very beautiful singing. And there was clouds of light where I was at, light and like blue sky. And at one point when I came back, there was, I was brought to this council of about 3 individuals. I don't exactly know who they were, but I wanted to stay. And I was told, it's not your time and you must go back, but there's something you have to do. And when you complete that, you can come back again. You can come home. And I argued for a while with them, but it was just, they told me that what it was that I had to do, but that I would forget it when I got back. And so at this point, I don't remember what it was. And I kind of have the realization that I had to work this out. If I knew what it was, it would upset the reason that I was here on this earth, And so anyways, I came back. I found myself back in my room and in my body again about 6 PM. And I was very emotional. The doctor came in my room and I was crying, and I said, I apologized. And I had no way of knowing that I was actually near death because I was never told. But obviously I found out during this experience. And I said, I am so sorry. And she says, for what? And I said, because you've worked so hard to save my life. And I so appreciate it. And I'm sorry for putting you through so much trouble. And she said, no. She says, on the contrary. She said, you are a survivor. She says, most people in your position just give up and die. And she said, we come in here. The doctors are amazed when they come in here because you're in here singing. And I'm not aware that I did that. So I just remember how difficult the whole experience was, apart from the near death of being so horrifically ill. So that was pretty much my experience. It's not long and involved, except that the fact that I was back and forth. I have no idea while I was going through this, what was going on in my room or in the hospital or on my floor or anything. Who was in my room or out of my room or what happened. And so that was pretty much what I experienced. And I feel that the experience, the NDE that I had, for me personally, it wasn't the be all end all of things. It was a course correction for me. And I think because I had prior to that, prior to that, I was kind of newly interested. I'd come out of a long history growing up in a evangelic religion. And then I'd left that and converted to Judaism, and had worked on immigrating to Israel at that point. I'd had quite a history. So I've always, I guess, been a seeker of the light and been willing to do the work to change. So this was one step along the way that I could have no doubt. And because I was always so hard on myself, this removed a lot of that. And I still have had to work on that to this day. Your life, I don't think that, at least for me, that my life miraculously changed, except that for the next 6 months after my experience, I could look at a flower and become that flower. I would fall in it, and it would speak to me. And I could be driving down the road, and the sky would be the clouds would be rippling across with brilliant colors, from fuchsia to green to gold to blue to aqua, just like a light show. And I think to myself, how am I expected to drive watching the sky like this? And I felt like I was, part of the clouds and part of the light for the next 6 months afterwards. So I, took that experience and used it. I think at this point, I'm not involved in any particular religion, because I feel like the universe is much larger than any one religion can offer. I don't believe in a one size fits all. I think we are all each individually unique. And I don't think that there's any right or wrong. So as far as it's all love, everything is love. And we have come from it, and we will return to it. And we walk in it while we're here, whether we're aware of it or not. Everything is made, and what we do with it is our choice. Oftentimes, I think the thing is, as far as judgment goes, or it's basically acceptance of what is and allowing. And that, I think the thing I've learned, because I have had many years of just prior to that surgery of issues. And I was in the military and exposed to a lot of chemicals. And that's created a lot of problems over the years with my health. So I've been in and out of the hospitals and surgeries. And I have been profoundly protected. I'm very aware of that. I feel in some instances that I've led a charmed life. So made aware of that I just have to ask for the help, and it's right there. And I feel that those forces, protective forces, I feel God being right there with me all the time. And I'm always seen. And that is the thing that I would say is, you're never alone. That you're always seen, always loved. And all we have to do is reach out for help and ask for it. And so that is pretty much, what I would have to say.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience with us, Susie. Do you recall what the angels looked like?
They were, I did, they were light in white robes, but the glow was so bright that I couldn't make out distinct features. And I think, and the same with God, that there was so much light that you can't see their faces. I couldn't see, especially in my room. But I was very aware, laying in the arms of God, that they were there and singing, and they were off at a little distance from us. So I don't remember that there was any ground, but just that I was in the arms of God and that I was profoundly loved.
Do you recall if they were singing songs or just singing melodies?
They were singing poetry, is what they were doing. They were singing poetic songs. And I've had an experience with them before and hearing them and singing many years ago. And it wasn't at that point, it wasn't a language that I understood, but I heard it for about 2 hours. Both a girlfriend of mine and both of us heard it. We were driving across the desert at night and it was dark. And we were both quiet. I had my head against the window. She was driving. And we both heard music from the back seat singing. And it was so indescribable and so beautiful. We didn't understand what was being sung exactly, except that we felt that, they were traveling with us and singing. And we had come from a conference, a spiritual conference. And so this was not that, though. This time I did understand it, but I don't remember what they said, exactly what they sang. And at the time I was hearing it, I kept thinking, wishing I could write it down because it was so beautiful.
After receiving God's love and learning that you get to receive it without having to earn it, how did that change you?
It's taken a long time, I have to say. It didn't come easy for me. There was still a lot of self-judgment. And it's not been until probably my 60s that I've really learned to accept myself, not judge so harshly. And I think, that, let's say I'm having a little brain fart here. But it's taken a long time to really work through a lot of the trauma that I had, prior to the surgery and even after the surgery. I've had a lot of stuff happen in my life. It's been a really crazy life, and I'm definitely a survivor. I've come to learn that and appreciate myself. And I think, I had to go through a lot to get through this, and let all that trauma that was in my body surface. And it's always an ongoing process. I think we're not done until the last moment of our lives. We're always here, processing things, and things come to the surface in layers, and maybe things aren't done all at once as far as healing goes. So for me, I had a lifetime of PTSD, and because of this, it set me on a different path of healing and turning up every rock that I could to really learn how to fall in love with myself, and to realize and to recognize that when I look back at my life, that I fell in love with myself because everything I did was out of survivor mode. I didn't have the tools in my chest to work with, and once I got those tools, and I have as a writer, I have a poem probably that explains it a lot better than I can relate right here. So I don't know.
You want to share the poem with us?
Yes. Let's see. It's called Your Life by Heart, and it's not too long. When you've learned to lighten up on yourself, learned compassion and kindness, you grieve for the years the locust has eaten. When you were so unjustly hard on yourself, when you looked in the mirror or at your life, when kindness arrives at your door, you look back at the old photos and realize there was nothing wrong with me. And anything that appeared to be out of place was merely fear and a deficit of love towards yourself, playing itself out in the world. When kindness arrives, you fall in love, maybe for the first time. The world is not our personal yardstick by which we measure ourselves. We will always come up short when we do. It is by the heart we see ourselves rightly, even in the most difficult of circumstances. Stay close to your heart. When hope or life feels spare, remember to return again and again. Your heart is the book by which you rightly read your life.
Well, your poem has a great message. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this. Did you happen to tell the doctor that you had an NDE?
No, I did not. No.
Have you told any of your family or friends?
Yes, I have. It's pretty widely known. And, I wasn't ready to talk about it right away afterwards. But shortly afterwards, I remember that I did. I was in a group of women. We met weekly, and it took me a long time to recover after this. I'm still suffering some of the consequences of that surgery to this day. But I did talk about it, and it has been. I've had a lot of people that have been really excited to hear it, and I think it's helped a lot of people. So, I have told a lot of people, and I've written about it too as well.
Have you noticed that you gained any abilities from your experience, like clairvoyance or clairaudience or anything?
I intuitively know things before they happen. I think, I have dreams, and they are foretelling dreams before something happens at times, warning dreams, or just, and actually I even had a dream before this happened, before I had this experience about 6 months prior, which was a warning dream. And, and the doctor's response to it is to, so, but yeah, I do have a lot of dreams, and I think, I just know things. Usually, if there's a question about something, the answer comes right away to me. I intuit it, either yes or no. And sometimes I don't want to the answer to be what it is, but I've come more and more to accept things on their own terms, to listen, and to be able to speak to people on a one-to-one in a way that I always want to. And I think the gift that came to me through this was I would hear people talk with so much wisdom and ability to speak in a way that others could hear it, and it would help their lives. And I think that was something that I gained through this, that there's a wisdom that where, of feeling like I'm part of the universe, and that universal wisdom to some degree, to some small degree, comes through me. And yes, so I wouldn't say, I guess that would probably be more maybe clairvoyance and a little bit of clairaudience.
You mentioned earlier that you considered your NDE like a course correction.
Yeah.
So how have you corrected your course?
It put me on the path that I'm on now, because up to that point, I was looking for more traditional means by which to save my life. And I realized, and it was a path of learning to accept myself, and not that I am my own authority, and not some book or group of people, but that to set the boundaries in my life, and that so that I could take care of myself, be self-nurturing, that in other words, that it wasn't mine to save the world. And that because that's something that I always tried to do, was to save other people, even if they didn't want to be saved. So, but learning to know the difference, to recognize, to let go that which is not mine, and only pick up that which is given to me to have or do or be, and to know the difference. So, because I made myself sick with it, trying to take care of other people. And I don't do that anymore. To be able to say what I mean and set boundaries. So that's been a huge thing for me, I believe. And I see it as a connection right back. I think when you fall in love with yourself, you value the authority that's been given to you over your own life, and my trust in God, that I'm protected, and I only have to speak up, and honor that which comes through me, and follow through.
I know you mentioned that you don't know what your life's mission or what's not complete for you, but do you have any guess what that may be?
Well, since I was a small child, the thing that I wanted to do and always dreamt of doing was writing. I wanted to be a poet and a writer. At that age, I was told this is not something that you can do. I got in a lot of trouble for writing. There was a lot of shame involved for the stories I wrote. And so I didn't have the confidence in myself to pursue that, although I did keep writing. So, my feeling was I always saw myself writing books and writing poetry. But I didn't really pick up that path as a product of the 50s. And, what will the neighbors think? That sort of mentality. I grew up with it, cut my teeth on that. So I have learned, I think, how to heal in my own way, rather unorthodox, and trust myself, and trust my relationship with God, and trust the love that I am given. It's been a long road. And I think part of the interruption that has come between me and whatever it is I'm to do. And I accept this. It took me a long time, because I used to, I would beat myself up because I didn't know exactly what it was I was supposed to do. But I recognize over the years of the things that I've been through, that was my life. But I am not those stories. Those are the things that got me to this point. And I think sometimes in our age, as we age, that we're here for a different purpose, we're to be wisdom keepers. And so that I feel has been given to me. I feel that maybe my journey, I'm not yet complete, obviously, but that is the place that I am at this point, and that I'm further heading into. And in order to be able to share that wisdom with others, when the time is right, and through my writing. And I do blog. I have a blog. So I've shared a lot of it through that as well. So, there's been a lot of my poetry has gone a lot of places. And, it's done things that I have no idea, but it's come back to me. And I've sold cards. I had my own line of greeting cards with my poetry and framed. And I used to do art fairs, and people would stop at my booth and walk away with armfuls of it. So I start crying when they read it. So I know that it has touched people, but I feel it's a gift from God. I'm only the conduit. So if I don't do it, somebody else will pick it up. And I don't know exactly what it is that like I said, I was told what my purpose was, but I don't remember what it is. And I think I have gone through this process of healing. This has been my journey, is healing, but that's not my life. I'm not that story. I am this blazing light inside my core. So I don't know if I'm making any sense right now. But, this is the best way that I can say it right now.
During your NDE, you said that you saw family members. Were they deceased family members?
Yes, they were deceased family members. And there was people I'm not sure, it could have been from past lives or ancestors. But, I did see there were some people there. And I believe that, I've seen my dad on the other side, because he passed about 10 years before I had my NDE. So I saw him, and I saw grandparents that were there. And then there was a crowd of people behind them that I don't know who they were. I didn't recognize them.
Initially, after you came back, were you certain that you had an NDE, or were you doubting it?
I was certain at the time. Yes, I was certain.
Have you had any negative after effects from your NDE?
No, I haven't. It has been, it has been basically just a steady climb. I haven't had any negative effects from the NDE itself. I can say that, other than doubters. There are people out there that are very skeptical about that sort of thing.
What inspires you about your NDE?
The love, the overwhelming, immense love that I felt. And I think that was the most profound thing about it. That amazing, all-consuming love. And that it was the absolute source, the quintessential source of all things. And it's what knits everything together. And without it, everything would cease to be.
Do you think that we could experience that amount of love in this 3D realm?
I think that those moments, a lot of time, from my experience and others, is that they come unbidden. A lot of times we don't ask for them, but all of a sudden there they are. They're, in a sense, they're like awakenings. Sometimes when life gets too hard or you're least expecting it, I've always found it to be that way. When you're least expecting it, it comes. and you have some experience that is very profound and otherworldly a lot of times, that sets you up onto a higher path. And so yes, I do think that we can, but and there, I'm sure I've had experiences, through meditation, and I've been meditating for about 25 years or so, and it's definitely doable. But I think my most profound experiences looking back have been the ones that have come to me and found me. I wasn't looking for that, even though I've had a lot of uplifting experiences through other means too, that have set me on a higher ground.
Do you fear death at all at this point?
No, I do not. No.
What would you say to people who have lost loved ones and they're curious if their loved ones are okay on the other side?
I try to comfort. I'm careful because grief can be tricky. But I just lost somebody that I love, like a couple weeks ago, and I grieved very hard. I still cry, over it, and it was very sudden. Wasn't expecting it, and but at the same time, even though he is not here, I know that, and he did not believe. He was very scientific minded and really didn't, he probably thought a lot of things that I said were more woo woo, but I know he's there, and I'm not worried. And I have this knowledge that I'm going to see him again. And I've even said it, when it's my time, he will be there waiting with his arms outstretched and laughing. And so I'm very much at peace. And I try to convey that message to others, that even though they're not here with you and we miss them terribly, it's not the end. And you will be together again. This is but a brief life, and but to offer comfort and compassion at the same time, and hope, and recognition of the loss.
I first want to offer my condolences for your loss.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind me asking, did you grieve because it's like you lost this companion that was with you and now the person's gone and you're alone?
I grieved, and he was a very dear friend. He was my partner in crime, and we were just so much laughter between us, and hugs, and I love yous, and he was just a really dear friend. We spent a lot of time together over the years, and I grieved because of the sudden passing, the unexpectedness of it. Although for probably a couple of months prior to that, I had this feeling of death around me. And I felt like somebody was going to die. I didn't know if it pertained to me or somebody else. And a lot of times I don't recognize things till afterwards. And I realize, except that I do remember saying to people, like my daughter, that, I felt like somebody was going to die. There's death in the air, but not knowing it was him, except that he hadn't been feeling good for a couple of months. So, I grieve for my own loss more than anything, because I know that he's okay. He's fine, absolutely fine. It's we, the living, who are left behind, that mourn the loss, which is entirely appropriate. I feel an emptiness in there's a hole, change in the air.
When you first came back, Were you depressed at all because you were in this amazing place and now you're back here in your body and back on earth?
Yes, there was some depression. Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't want to come back. I did not. So, sometimes it's easy to, you have to want your life. You have to choose your life. And despite whatever happens or in spite of, there are times where it becomes our time and it's time to go. And there are exit points in life where you can choose, something will happen and you can make a choice whether you're going to go or stay. And I've had a number of those experiences myself, and I always at the last minute have chose to stay, and because I wanted to finish what I started. I think maybe I overpacked my life to a large degree to get through stuff. Because I've always said I'm not coming back again. So it's been very tumultuous, but I don't regret any of it. I have absolutely zero regrets for my life. I have, so much has been forgiven, and realizing that whatever happened to me or whatever decisions I made at the time, it was only an act of surviving. It was what I knew to do as a survivor, because that's what I am. And the trick was to learn to go from surviving to thriving, where you make choices about your own life. And I remember a few years ago, I was laying on the gurney in the VA hospital, and I was in a great deal of pain, and I didn't know what was happening, and I was crying and crying. And I thought to myself, I had become so discouraged with everything I'd been experiencing. And I realized we don't know how we're going to act when we face death. Because sometimes we think, I really don't want my life anymore for whatever reason. If you've got depression or mental issues or life circumstances, and we think we don't value our lives, but we don't know what's around the corner, because the next second could change your life completely. For every valley, there's a mountain. Every mountain, there's a valley. But they both play out. So it's learning to be in those places with complete acceptance as they are, knowing things will change and we have no idea what's coming next. And so to make a decision to end your life, in some cases I do understand it when the suffering becomes too unbearable through illness or otherwise. But to hold on to my life, to value it, to cherish it, to say that it means something, whether I at times, even when I don't necessarily think so, it's gotten too hard. And I made a decision. I thought, I was laying on that gurney, and I thought about my daughter, and she was the one that came to me, and I realized that if I die, I cannot be here to put my arms around her. I can't tell somebody I love them that they can automatically hear me and know and feel my love directly. And how frustrating that would be. My daughter she's an only child and says, "Mom, you can't die. You've got to stay because, I don't have any brothers or sisters. And once you and Dad are gone, that's it. I'm all alone." So I have to be here. But, I realized that mainly because in order to show my love, and to let somebody know how much I love them I need my physicality. I need my body to do that with. I need my mouth, my voice, to affect change. It's much easier to affect change when you're in your body than when you're not. It takes a lot longer. The things that you maybe failed to do in your lifetime, when you get to the end of your life and there's regrets. I didn't really live my life out in the way that I needed to. I missed out, and I missed the love I could have had and the things I could have done. And so it takes a lot longer to correct things on the other side. So I want to finish everything that I came here to do before I go home.
You mentioned earlier that you have a blog. If somebody wants to check it out, how do they find it?
It's under dearmiracle.com.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and just chat with you or ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, how should they do that?
They could contact me if they wanted to leave a message on my podcast or my blog. There's places, the last thing that I wrote, they could leave a message there. They could actually email me under thewayofangels@gmail.com.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
I can. It's a little thing that I wrote, very short. Relax, nothing is under control. Creation and destruction travel in pairs. Better to stop trying to manage the universe and know that whatever is happening, its function is to find what cannot be destroyed, to find what is eternal and indelible in you.
Thank you for that message. And Susie, thank you for being my guest this evening. I really wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I'm happy to be here.
And have a wonderful evening.
You too. Good night.
Good night. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.